investigative agency, and it is their job to investigate crime. They have a specialized unit to investigate the use of force cases. They arrived on site after the shooting and were refused access. They then secured a judicial warrant, a warrant signed by a judge, which has never been needed before, and were still refused access. This is uncharted territory.
Hayden, you have to be a little quieter.
Now, friends, this comes at the tail end of other offenses, like a shooting in North Minneapolis and another homicide in South Minneapolis, Renee Nicole Good, where they also were denied access to the scene, and investigators are, to this moment, still being denied access to the investigative file. This is not a rash decision for us to go to court and to seek a temporary restraining order from a judge to preserve evidence and prevent the destruction of evidence. I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, or whatever, but you should at least be in favor of conserving evidence.
This is wild. It's wild that they had to tell them to conserve the evidence.
A judge to preserve that evidence is extraordinary and should alarm everyone who believes in equal justice under the law.
What's up, Dog Lover? What's up, BTC?
Person, no matter how this case ultimately is resolved, deserves to have their case investigated to get to the truth of what happened. This is an extraordinary moment in an unprecedented time, and we're doing all we can to step up to that moment. My office represents the BCA and joined the Hennepin County Attorney's Office in a lawsuit last night, as you know, and we moved to prevent the destruction and or tampering with evidence related to Alex Pretty's shooting. And this includes any evidence the federal agents took from the scene of the shooting, preventing the
They tried to block them from the scene. They tried to block local law enforcement from preserving evidence. A man was killed, and they tried to block block local police from preserving evidence.
Take immediate action to preserve the evidence. And last night, within 2 hours of the filing, a judge granted the motion.
The judge had to say, you cannot destroy evidence.
The Department of Homeland Security
That's wild.
And the federal government are now enjoined
That's wild.
destroying or altering evidence related to yesterday's shooting. The fact that anyone would ever think that an agent of the federal government might even think about doing such a thing was completely unforeseeable only a few weeks ago. But now, this is what we have to do. As we said in our filing last night, the irreparable harm we would suffer if the federal government were allowed to destroy evidence is so weighty that any harm to the federal government...
I don't think people have processed exactly what would happen if the federal government could suppress evidence. It is
balancing of the scales.
It is unbelievable. You can't believe anything the state of Minnesota says. How so, BTC? Why do you believe that, BTC? Why can we believe everything the federal government... Hold on, I'm going to mute this for a second.
And I will say...
I'm going to mute this for a second.
I've heard not one single law enforcement...
Why can we believe everything that the federal government has to say, but nothing that the state of Minnesota has to say? Please tell me that. Please explain to me why bias only exists in one direction. Why we're only assessing the bias of media, of local law enforcement, of local officials, of independent observers, of independent citizens, observers, watchdogs. Those people all have bias and the federal government uniquely does not. Explain that to me. Please explain that to me. I do not fathom that. I cannot understand how you can genuinely believe such a thing.
We've had...
Oh, what's up, Liggy? Yeah, I was having some massive issues. I couldn't read chat. I couldn't see anything. But I think I'm good now.
Numbers of people who have been stopped and
the
demand for their papers, to have to show their papers in America.
Explain that to me, BTC. How can you I'm going to mute again so I can make this point. Why can we not trust local law enforcement, local officials, observers on the ground, citizens on the ground, watchdogs on the ground, independent media institutions? We can't trust the plurality of their statements, but we can trust exclusively what the federal government has to say about it. Explain that to me, please. You're cooking away your rage. That's probably a very healthy outlet for rage. Not gonna lie, I think that's one of the healthiest things you can do with rage. I would gander. What are you cooking up? I feel like if I lived in your household, I would really benefit from this situation on the ground right now with the rage cooking. Something else that's wild. You can answer my question, Leggy. Please answer my question. It's because it's a cult, right? Because it's a cult. It's a cult. There's never been more clear than now that it is a cult. The feds aren't speaking to us. What's up, Vienna? Yeah, this stream is exclusively for people who wanted to watch the sign interpreter and understand the sign interpreter. If you can, I'm sorry, you just can't hear what's happening right now. They're speaking to the cult members with their silence. Their silence is meant to speak and appeal to the cult members. I think that's true. I think that's likely. It's upsetting, but holy shit. Nothing is surprising anymore. Just another day for the awful species. That's true. That's true. And I think I'm the person who is always gonna say like, it's not over. We can't give up. That's always gonna be my take. And I know that's not always a healthy take, and my response is not always healthy, but that's always gonna be my take. And I think, if anything, this moment has become more blatant, more clear than ever, exactly how insanely prejudiced and biased the federal government is. How unlikely they are to tell the truth about anything at this point. Anything. They will not hold 7 men accountable for holding down a man, pepper spraying him in the face, holding him down, and then shooting him point blank for doing nothing. The man did nothing but help a woman. That was his crime, is helping a woman. And from every angle you look at this, you can see, number one, never did he brandish nor reach for a weapon. Never did he brandish nor reach for a weapon. At any point did he brandish or reach for a weapon. Number two, his weapon was removed from his waistband before he even was shot. The man removed the weapon. Now, there's some theories that the agent who removed the weapon was the first, basically accidentally shot off a round, and that's what caused the subsequent shots. Possible, but does that make it justifiable? Fuck no. Fuck no. It doesn't make it justifiable. Goose stock. I have never. These are unknown territories for me. Goose stock and dry aged goose. Is it good? Is that good? But every way you look at this, it is unforgivable. The only thing the administration has said is that he was trying to enact massive harm or mass harm, whatever phrase they tried to use, with zero evidence provided toward that. The bovine went on CNN again today to try to echo that. And Dana Bash was like, tell us, what is the evidence that shows that he was trying to enact massive harm? No evidence available. No evidence given. And by the way, it's gotten to a point where it's the state response is now holistic, because the state is cracking down, and also state-run media, like now TikTok crashed last night. I don't know if you guys know about this, but people have been unable to post new videos. I tried to post a video earlier today, unable to post it. If you Google TikTok down, you'll see that there have been users reporting outages for the past 12 hours or so. TikTok is down after being transferred. The ownership transferred a few days ago to Larry Ellison, the billionaire and Zionist, who is a huge Trumper and wants to support the mass surveillance state, is big supporter of mass surveillance and mass police and an active police state. And the second this happens, the second that all of our eyeballs see the police state in action, executing a man in the street, TikTok crashes. TikTok is down. Discord also had some weird outages. See, this is the shit I'm talking about. It is, and it sounds conspiratorial, and I have never been a conspiracy theorist. I have never had a conspiratorial bone in my body. But it's happening. It is actively happening. You cannot, if I tried to post a TikTok just an hour ago, I tried to repost. It will not let me post a new TikTok. because they do not want people to organize, to get information out, to disseminate. They don't want that happening in this moment. That works counter to tamping down on dissidents. It works counter to the police state. It works counter to mass surveillance. Instead, they want people to be fearful. They want people to feel hopeless. They want people to feel inept in the face of this massive and all-consuming police state. That's what they want people to feel in this moment. And fuck that. Fuck that. I will not submit. I will not submit to that. My experience was so wild. It seemed like only politics-related channels were broken. What? There's definitely confirmation bias involved in this. I mean, and I don't think TikTok is only taking down videos of like political videos. I think there is something happening on a platform app-wide level to tamp down on new conversation taking place, because they don't want to fan the flames of dissidents. All right, let's see what they're saying here.
We will not back down, and we will not bend.
That's what I just said.
And so let me wrap up by saying this. We will never forget Alex Preddy. We will never forget Renee Nicole Good. And we will never forget any of the Minnesotans who have suffered so unjustifiably in this time. Minnesota is a great place. That is why I believe we've been targeted. But it's not going to work. And we'll be in court tomorrow arguing for the rights of every Minnesotan to stand up and be the generous, courageous people that we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General. We'll be glad to take some questions, folks. Tom?
Wells, you got a letter from Attorney General Pam Bondi making several demands, I guess you would call them, regarding sanctuary cities, regarding fraud and voter rolls. Your response to that, and is there anything you can do to meet the Trump administration at least part of the way to try to turn this temperature down?
Well, first of all, it's not a serious attempt, and the Attorney General's in that. And I would thank the
very low volume.
folks.
My bad.
Commissioner Snell, thank you to you and your team over there. In that letter, they talked about, you need to hand people over who are in your jails. They're taking credit for people that we've had in jail for a long time. We always hand them over, and the commissioner very clearly.
Did he lose
so
weight?
they're
This is
lying.
not the point. But did he lose weight?
This has nothing to do with fraud.
Yeah, Infinity. That's absolutely what they're doing. Establishment Dems at this point, blatantly just meeting them halfway there.
Things that have been.
Because why aren't they helping? Where's the mutual aid on the ground? Not mutual aid. Where's the aid from the government on the ground? Because all there is mutual aid. All there is volunteerism. Where's the aid from local law enforcement? Where's the aid from local officials like Frey, outside of just like the verbiage? Where's the actual support? Where's the tangible, meaningful support? I don't see it.
Was rigged, who started all this nightmare for America, has nothing to do.
That's good, Liggy, but I feel like they're trying to figure out who the sacrificial lambs are in the Democratic Party that they can have go out and vote for the funding, so that they can say like, well, a bunch of Democrats stood up to it, but there were a couple we couldn't get in line. When in reality, it feels like the establishment Democrats are fully in line with a police state that is operationalized by ICE and CBP.
Trump won. We filed a lot of lawsuits. We're north of 50 now, and they've been on everything from birthright citizenship to SNAP to things like the National Institute of Health to EV to all kinds of things, and they've been complying with the orders. Now, I will say, the foot drag. We've had to threaten them with contempt a few times, and I'm not saying that the compliance has been good. I am saying that open defiance of court orders is not something that we've experienced. And so I have every reason to believe that they will obey the court order. Now, if they don't, we have recourse, and we'll pursue that recourse. On a deeper level, your question, I would simply say this.
Wait, they voted for the funding?
they may not.
Okay, sorry. I was like, how did the vote already happen? You're talking about with the big beautiful bill. Yeah. It was with the budget reconciliation.
And that's on them. But we're going to seek those orders, and we're going to insist that they be followed.
Local sheriffs have said they lack the legal authority to honor ICE detainers, and that's something that Attorney General Ellison has said as well. They lack the authority under Minnesota law. Is that an authority you could just give them? Could you pass a law?
So really, the key issue here is I think most sheriffs in the state do fully honor ICE detainers and provide notification. The issue becomes when they have a lawful reason to be released, bail, released by judicial order. The jail cannot hold that person beyond that point in time. That's the fundamental issue. There is not a lack of cooperation. There is just some legal boundaries. We've had some conversations with ICE about this. We think that there may be some things that could be worked out, but I don't think that's the core issue that we're really dealing with here.
Can I simply say that it puts Minnesota in a very difficult position, because if such a person were held beyond a period of time when the state court has the authority to hold them, then the state court is exposing itself to liability. So ICE just has to show up and do its job.
That's the fundamental question here. And that's the fundamental argument they keep making. We cooperate. We don't do their job. You saw it this week with rural, conservative Cottonwood County. Sheriff had someone, told them this person's time is done. We can't just hold them indefinitely. It's against the law. So we're going to release this guy. Come and get him. They're too busy up here doing what they did yesterday to go pick up someone who actually should be removed from this country. And I don't know how many times they try and confuse the people across this country. It's their job to do immigrations.
I get what they're doing here. They're trying to speak to some perceived middle ground that's like, well, we want the illegal and the people who are the criminals. We want the criminals deported for sure. And so they're trying to speak to this middle ground. But fuck this. Why are we even wasting time litigating whether or not you are cooperating with people who have proven they don't care about the fucking law? People who have shown that they don't give a fuck about any of our constitutional rights. Our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, our Fourth Amendment, our Fifth Amendment, our 14th. They don't care about any of our constitutional rights. They don't care. And so why are you spending time, Tim Walz and the chief of, I'm assuming this is the chief of Minneapolis Police. Why are you guys spending time up here being like, we are cooperating with them. We are helping them. Who fucking cares at this point? We don't want you helping a body of people that is fundamentally destroying our Constitution. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. Instead, spend your time, use your platform to highlight exactly how they are violating the rights of people in your state and in your city. That's the kind of rhetoric that should be going out. We don't care that you're trying to help them. That doesn't make us more believe that you are fighting for the people of your city and your state. That's not what's going to help us believe that.
The final outcome is going to be. We have to get the evidence and find out. But if you're asking me, Tom, if I'm concerned, you better believe I am concerned. But look, they got the order. Now they're going to defy the court if they don't follow it.
You met with Vice President Vance when he was in town on Thursday. I understand. I did. Can you tell us about what the tenor of that meeting was? His goal was to turn down the temperature. 2 days later, there was the shooting.
Well, I guess it didn't work, huh? I mean, here's the thing.
That's stupid.
Governor Walz and I were in Congress together for 12 years. Before both of us went to go serve in the state government. We're used to talking to these folks. Why not see if there's something that can be arrived at? I can tell you that it was a polite meeting. I can also tell you.
Oh, great. It was polite. That makes me happy. That's so great that you guys were polite to each other.
Honestly,
that's really relieving that you were polite.
Not even hours, a few minutes later, he just got up there and just articulated the same talking points he made to me in the meeting. I tried to correct him. He didn't want to hear that. And so I'm like, well, Welcome to Minnesota. Thank you very much. You both of us have things to do. So see you later. And I left. It was a cordial enough.
Cordial. I'm so glad. I'm so relieved it was cordial. I'm so relieved by that. Thank you. Thank you for keeping it cordial, man.
And I'm sure the governor agrees. If you can try to talk to somebody sensibly, we do. But that one didn't get.
That's what I'm saying. Why are they wasting their breath pointing out this stupid ass shit? We don't care whether it was cordial or not.
Do you know if the federal agents who were directly
For real,
Liggy,
Liggy.
at the time of the shooting are still out on the street in the Twin Cities or anywhere else in Minnesota? Any of them?
Don't know.
Don't know. They don't talk to us. They don't tell us. They don't.
And with the BCA being denied access to the scene after getting a warrant, is there recourse for them that way, or do you feel that this restraining order that you obtained requiring the federal government to preserve evidence is that recourse?
So there are
No, because why are
certain
they going to abide by that?
legal strategy decisions that I'm not at liberty to.
I don't think
go on about in a meeting like this one.
it's been made clear enough exactly what happened with this decision. A judge had to step in and tell ICE that they can't destroy any of the evidence on the scene. A judge stepped in to tell ICE you cannot destroy evidence. That decision had to be said from the judiciary to the executive branch. That is fundamentally fucked up that we're here. It's fundamentally fucked up. Just on his face.
I'm not at liberty to tell you what you're asking me, but I am here to assure the public and who's listening that we are going to get to the truth of this matter.
Red and conservatives are split, but some are making fun of Minnesota for this because why would a judge tell them to not do illegal things that are already illegal?
This morning.
Yeah.
Can you confirm
I mean,
what they were doing there?
Same with
the question is about whether or not the BCA agents were on the scene of the shooting.
Same with when they decide the federal judge came down with a determination that ICE can't retaliate against peaceful protesters, which is again another constitutional right that they're having to make a decision about. But I think that having the ability, I think having judges just make rulings that are contrary and counter to what the administration is trying to do, I think that is gonna do something. It worked to some extent in Chicago when Judge Sarah Ellis kept saying like, okay, well, you can't do this. And she made Greg Bovino, the CBP chief, basically check in with her every evening in her judge quarters and be like, okay, did you use any force today? If so, why? And justify every individual use of force. And he lied his ass off. He lied his ass off on every single thing in those hearings. But they got annoying. Like these guys they don't want to feel like they are accountable to anyone. They love the impunity of the role that the feds are out there being like, you have absolute immunity in the conduct of your duties, which they do not. They do not have absolute immunity. They do not have absolute immunity. They have something called qualified immunity, which applies to civil lawsuits. When it comes to a criminal lawsuit, they can be criminally held liable by the federal government if the Department of Justice decides to pursue a criminal lawsuit against an ICE or CBP agent who does something criminal. That is definitely within the bounds of the law, and the burden for that is higher, but the burden is a willful violation of constitutional rights. If the officer acted in willful violation of constitutional rights, which in both the cases of Renee Good and of Alex Preddy, I think these are among the best cases in history to show that these federal officers were acting in willful violation of Alex Preddy and Renee Good's constitutional rights. They do not have immunity. They do not have absolute immunity, and they don't even have qualified immunity when it comes to criminal prosecution. The only reason that they're saying they have immunity is essentially JD Vance and Stephen Miller are giving them that immunity by saying, while we are in charge of the federal government, we will not go after you. That is a fucking problem. They are telling them that as the prosecutors who could pursue criminal charges against you, we're saying we're not going to. We're saying we're not going to. It's as though a state prosecutor, a state DA told a local gang, like, hey, you're operating here in Baltimore. We're not going to go after you. Feel free to do whatever you want. There is nothing you will do that will make us prosecute anything against you. That is what that is the equivalent of. They don't have any sort of legislative or constitutional immunity. They absolutely do not. And for Stephen Miller and JD Vance to go out there and say that, they're saying we're handing you this immunity by telling you that our feds will not go after you. Lower court judges keep pushing back. The Supreme Court keeps overturning the shadow docket with no explanation. That hasn't even, they don't even overturn. They just stay. They just stay. They say like, we're not ready to we're not ready to judge on the merits of this case. They kick the can down the road over and over and over with in the hopes that what's going to happen? Trump dies, in the hopes that the midterm elections make it so that they don't have to decide, because they are just as scared of retribution from Trump and his cronies as everybody else is. Like that, they suckle on the same teat that all of the other maggots do. Minnesota state law will have a hard time superseding federal law. Yeah, you can. It's nearly impossible for Minnesota to actually prosecute these crimes because they will remove it to a federal court. And while these prosecutors will remain Minnesota prosecutors, federal courts always give more benefit of the doubt, more favorability to federal officers, federal law enforcement. Now, they would have to prove, in the case of Jonathan Ross, that a reasonable officer would believe that his life were in danger in that moment, which I think a reasonable officer, especially based on what JD Vance has come out and said, that Jonathan Ross was traumatized by a prior experience. I think it would be determined that Jonathan Ross's assessment of threat was not reasonable because of his trauma. I think that would be determined. I think that would be a totally valid determination based of reasonableness. As far as these officers who point blank shot Alex Preddy in the back, point blank shot him in the back. There is no reasonable officer that would assume imminent threat to serious bodily harm or life in that moment when the man was hands on the floor, knees on the ground, had no ability to reach for any weapon. The only reason that they panicked is because one of their other agents said gun, 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 which made them like not, they don't have training. They don't have training. So instead of remaining calm in the face of gun, 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 they freaked the fuck out and they shot him point blank multiple times. And that is not what that assessment of imminent threat would not hold up as reasonable, even in a federal court, I believe. If this were to move forward, I hope Minnesota prosecutes. I hope it happens. I think if they do, it'll be removed to a federal court. Even if it is removed to a federal court, in order to prove that there is that this can move forward, they just have to show that this was done in the conduct of their federal duties, which they were on duty. They were doing their ICE duties, and that it was a willful violation of constitutional law by any reasonable officer's assumption. And I think they can prove all of that. The state gives Trump what he wants and leaves space to write rulings that will limit the next Democratic president when the time comes. Yeah, that's true. That's right. But it's not just rulings. I think they're hoping that there's legislative that by the time they have to make a determination, there's legislate. They're cowards. They don't want to make determinations on this. They know that it is indefensible, but they know that they are also meant to defend this. Their job at this point is to defend the indefensible, and they're trying to figure out how to do it with minimal blowback. That's what their whole thing is about now. It's pretty fucking stupid, if you ask me. This controversy separates conservatives who believe in Second Amendment rights and oppose tyranny from the fascist bootlickers. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And what's funny is like NRA came out and was like, somebody tweeted, let me see if I can find the NRA tweet. NRA was like, no, having a gun having a gun is not reasonable suspicion. Having a gun is not probable cause. That is your Second Amendment right. If you have a registered concealed weapon, that is not probable cause or reasonable suspicion. Absolutely not. The NRA came out and said this, and then they hedged and they had other things to say, but they said that. It does not warrant probable cause or reasonable suspicion because they had a gun on them. Just because you have a gun on you doesn't mean that it is probable cause or reasonable suspicion. It does not satisfy either of those. Pretty wild stuff when the NRA is agreeing. All right, let's put this back up. NRA statement. Oh, thank you, Liggy. Let's see what the NRA had to say about this. I wonder if you guys can hear the music. What? What is happening? My ex looks wild. What is this? Oh, X cancel. Whoa, Liggy, what is this? I don't know about X cancel. What's up, Frank? What's up? Good morning. I don't know what this is, Liggy. What's X cancel? Please describe what this means to me. Yeah, no, I know it's the NRA statement, but is this like a way to look at X without looking at X? It lets you see Twitter without an account. That's amazing. Okay, I didn't know this existed. I can absolutely use this. Okay, so this guy, Bill Asaley, says, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified. Don't do it. Okay, again, not true. If you brandish, sure. Approach with a concealed, what? And then the NRA says, this sentiment from the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District of California is dangerous and wrong. Responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. Damn. Damn. Wow. I did not see that coming from the NRA. Did not see that strong reproachment coming from the NRA. Not gonna lie. Wow. That's crazy, man.
Alex Preddy, of course, the man who was shot and killed after an interaction with federal agents. Bovino did say that the agents had to make a split-second decision, and saying that the
decision
involved are still working. They were not put on any kind of leave, administrative or otherwise. He says that they are still out of the
They're not on leave. They're not on leave. You can execute somebody in the street and still work your job, turns out. In the United States of America, you can execute people on the street and then return to work the next day.
Of an investigation that would include videos, witness statements from officers. And it's important to note that's very different from what we heard yesterday from federal officials, specifically DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who said that, this person, Preddy, went there to massacre agents.
This is a big deal. It's a big deal that they are walking back the statements they made yesterday, where they was like, so in the same vein as they have been doing for the past year, the DHS, Greg Bovino, all of them came out with such certitude, being like, he was trying to enact mass harm, certainty. He was a domestic terrorist. Everybody's a domestic terrorist if they don't like you. And they walked that shit back. Greg Bovino today was like, we got to do an investigation.
Rather vaguely.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. They show you their vulnerability. They're showing you that they're a little bit vulnerable to public sentiment. We have to capitalize on that. We have to take every inch and make it a mile.
Press conference is happening at the same time. Governor Tim Walz holding that presser, reiterating his calls for ICE to get out of Minnesota, calling it an occupation and calling their presence in Minnesota inhumane. Here's part of what he had to say just moments ago.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan?
That's the other thing. Trump has been suspiciously quiet on this whole situation. He has not said a peep. And I think he does not like this. I think he thinks it makes him look bad. And we know more than anything, he wants so badly to look good and for people to love him. And I think the criticism and approbation the criticism and approachment is breaching even his circles, because he has made his media diet and his circle of voices so tight that he usually doesn't hear negative feedback. But I think because there's such overwhelming distaste for what happened, it is broaching his small, narrow circle of information. And he probably does not like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a shift, but there was still a planting of a narrative that I think is rather false. He laid out this idea that the protesters had choice, that Alex Preddy had choice, that Renee Good had choice, but they, CBP and ICE law enforcement officers, they don't have choice, they have a duty. And I just have to say that having served in the executive branch, one of the things that the executive branch enjoys is discretion. Both Republican and Democratic administrations often talk about their ability to have discretion in how they enforce the law. So I think it was a rather false argument to suggest that they had no choice, that this was unavoidable.
Yeah, no fucking shit.
I think that
not to be parasocial, and feel free to, if you can actually point me to some groups in the DC area.
That only the public
yeah, dude. I mean, I'm happy to. I think the hardest thing is to find the places. So protest wise, I'm not as involved because I'm trying to do things that are a little bit more low key because of just my position in life where I'm at with young kids, but there are mutual aid groups that I'm part of that help drive or accompany people to their immigration hearings. There's like really great Homes Not Borders local chapters here that help largely Afghani refugees set up their homes. There's lots of like less visible but very impactful ways to get involved. So like I'll DM you some information and some places where you can reach out for sure.
To suggest that Alex Peretti was some sort of mass attacker that was bent on destruction. And now that the videos have been widely circulated and the public doesn't see that, they're kind of backtracking and then making this red herring of an argument to suggest that they were just doing their duty. I think the American public, as we are starting to see from a broad swath, not just Governor Walz, but we're seeing Republican governors, Republican senators, members of Congress say this cannot stand, this pattern of behavior where American citizens are getting killed by CBP officers.
It's fucking bleak.
Something is wrong, and we need to stop and figure out what has gone bad here and change our tactics, change the way, the how you are enforcing the law. You have discretion. It does not have to be this way where people end up dead.
No.
And just to your point, just yesterday, Commander Bravino.
It doesn't have to be this way, but that is the design. They want this. And it is all being orchestrated. The head, the person who is the puppeteer of this all is Stephen Miller. 1,000% Stephen Miller. He is the only one in that administration that loves what is happening. He loves what is happening. This is his end goal. He wanted this. He wanted this. He wanted people to have to come out and pick sides. He wanted the type of anarchy so that he could then claim that he needs to suppress the anarchy and bring back law and order. And the only method by which he can do so is remove anybody who dissents. That was Stephen Miller's end game forever and always. And he is the only one who is out here loving this. Everybody else in the Trump administration is on somewhere on the spectrum of like, they're about it or they're like very reticent. But Stephen Miller, this is by his design. They are all his pawns in this game. They like even Trump has been like, yeah, that guy's a little bit because he's depraved. He is depraved. He wants this. This is what Stephen Miller wants. And his wife too. His wife, they are both, I feel like, socio and or psychopaths.
Vaguely blame folks that were there, maybe even implying that Alex Peretti was there and had a choice. So, it remains to be seen what these comments taken in its totality actually mean for the investigation, if we'll even see any sort of evidence from the investigation. I pressed the secretary yesterday on what evidence she had to make those claims.
2020, I just rode around my e-bike and tried to find roaming groups of angry people.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis
That's one way.
Jacob Fry for the events unfolding in Minnesota. What is she saying about
what's up, Ocean View?
Agents leaving the state, and how is Governor Walz responding?
Well, you heard the governor mention it in that press conference, but basically, she's saying that blaming Walz and blaming the mayor, Jacob Fry, for the events that are unfolding.
Is it Frey or Fry?
That,
I'm hearing it both ways.
The lawlessness is basically at their feet. She said, that there are three things that.
Also, after you've let the bullets fly, just ask Luigi Mangione.
Jurisdiction. Sharing Minnesota's food stamp and Medicaid records. And then she said that the Civil Rights Division should be allowed access to Minnesota's voter rolls.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That is a crazy ask, right? That is what Pam Bondi has requested from Minnesota in exchange for ICE to be removed, is voter rolls. They want access to voter data so that they can continue to intimidate and suppress people who vote against them, people who disagree. They've asked for the voter rolls. That's crazy. That's a crazy demand to even have made public, Pam Bondi. That's wild. That's wild of you. Truly wild. I'm almost impressed by the boldness, but it's pretty idiotic.
30 hours or so here in the state of Minnesota. I want to extend my absolute sympathy to the family of Mr. Alex Peretti, my fellow registered nurse and ICU nurse who cared for veterans. It's a tragic loss of life. at the hands of ICE agents who are operating in the state of Minnesota with masks, guns. They're unidentified and unaccountable. This is the second life we have lost, a poet and a registered nurse.
Within a
They
month.
are not
Within a
properly
month.
trained. They are not here at our invitation, and they're making us less safe. It is time for ICE to leave the state of Minnesota, and we demand justice for Alex's family, for Alex, for Renee's family, for Renee, and for the people who have been harmed by the outside of the law efforts that we have seen over and over in communities across the state of Minnesota by ICE and this federal government. It has to end.
Senator Murphy, Attorney General Keith Ellison said in this latest press conference that he will be in court tomorrow for an ongoing lawsuit.
This is why I stopped voting in primaries. I voted in the 2020 primaries and then got bombarded with damn mailers. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
First of all,
That's totally
I'm so
fair.
grateful that they went to court and got a TRO last night so that the federal government cannot destroy or alter evidence in the shooting yesterday of Mr. Preddy. And I'm grateful that we'll be in court again tomorrow. It is important to say that Minnesotans have rights. People have rights. The state has laws that need to be followed. We have a constitution.
Why do we need to say that? Why do we need to say we have rights? Why does that even need to be restated?
In court tomorrow, and I pray that we are successful in Minnesota.
Wild.
Because right now, what we're seeing is Minnesotans' freedoms are being trampled upon. And if that is allowed to stand, we know that it will be exported to other states in addition to ours. The people of Minnesota, in the most profound way, through their own neighborhoods and their own local communities, are standing up and fighting for the freedom of this country and for this republic. It is a profound moment for America and one that I am proud to be a part of, but it's also a dangerous.
I think this is genuinely unprecedented. Like we throw around the word unprecedented a lot in Trump 2.0, but when I think about the ability of people to see what happened, right? Like the wide dissemination, wide availability of multiple angles of an event, of an abuse, right? That has not been available to us in crises past. The first really kind of real-time example is Gaza. And we were consistently inundated with footage of what was happening in Gaza. And I think what that caused was a shift in public mindset. And people were genuinely like, people who prior were like, well, Israel's an ally, right? Like didn't really know much about it, were being hit with footage. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a blatantly messed up. This is blatantly fucked up. What's up, Renata? Thank you. And so it shifted the public mindset in a way that we hadn't seen before. But then the counterweight to that is the constant bombardment with this just fries your nervous system and you become unable to do anything about it. Like you just don't know what to do. You're just like, I'm overwhelmed. I think I live in an apocalyptic state and I don't know what to do about this. And so it makes you feel inept, unable. And that I think has caused what the situation in Gaza that we see today, where there is widespread animosity and disgust of what's happening, but very little action towards stopping it. Very little that people are able to do towards stopping it because it doesn't feel like novel. It doesn't feel like astonishing. It's just the horror, the reality of the horrific world we live in now because you're constantly hit with it. And that is dangerous. I think it's more dangerous that we have so much availability of this information and yet we're so unable to do anything with it. Horror satiation, exactly. It is like just consuming the content makes you feel like, well, at least I know about it. And it's just not enough to know about it. And that's why I think, like, for me at least, I started feeling so I got to a point where it was all I was talking about in therapy and I was just so overwhelmed and I was like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about this. And I found for me the combination of talking about it and then taking action where I could helped me at least feel like not personally, I'm not unable. I'm not inept. It made me feel not incompetent, I guess. And that's been helpful in some respects. I think the next step is like, what happens once you start taking those first steps? What do you do to enact more consistent and sustained change? What do you do? And I think that is where organizing on a local level and then combining those efforts comes into play. And that's somewhere that I think we haven't gotten yet because our nervous systems are so fried by the constant inundation. I think that's the problem. I remind you of Naomi Scott. Is that the ABC News reporter? Naomi Scott. Let's look her up together. Naomi Scott. No, she's not she's British Indian heritage, known for You have no idea how much I love a good Princess Jasmine reference. That makes me so happy. Thank you. What's up, Abby? But yeah, it's something that I think is we have to be careful of feeling like watching and listening and consuming is enough, because it's not. It's just not enough. We have to do what we can in our own spaces outside of consuming.
Border Patrol officers that did not use lethal force and one that did. Assessing that sort of decision making in that specific moment needs to be assessed, but the overall way in which that these operations are being carried out, are they in the public safety interest? Are they being carried out legally under legal authorities with probable cause? Are agents using sort of response tactics that are proportional to the threats that they're seeing on the ground? And is there other ways that law enforcement could go
the answer is no.
Out these duties, protecting our communities and sort of executing sort of removal operations in a humane job?
The other thing that this whole conversation of like, are there other ways we can make this, we can enact this change or carry out these enforcement operations that definitely need to be carried out? The other consequence of this conversation that we've been pushed towards, right? They've shifted the Overton window to not from like, hey, should we even embark on this? But okay, obviously we need to do this, but how do we do it? It's not obvious that we need to do this. It's just not obvious. There are, of course, always going to be immigrants, legal and illegal, who came in legally and illegally. There are always going to be people who came in documented and undocumented. And of those people, there are going to be some that commit crimes. I think most of us agree that people who come in and are undocumented migrants who commit crimes, violent crimes, we should find a way to not retain them in our country. I think most people agree about that. I think when you start to make that a crisis and you start to claim that there is a crisis of crime being committed by immigrants, first of all, they started with crisis of crimes committed by undocumented migrants, right? That was the starting point. It's the worst of the worst who came in here undocumented, and we need to get them out. They're committing these violent crimes. That was the starting point. And most people were like, okay, there probably are some undocumented migrants that are committing violent crimes and they shouldn't be here. Great. But then to say we need boots on the ground to find and remove these people is patently false. We don't need that. There is not a level of scale that warrants that. There is not the scale of undocumented migrants committing violent crimes that warrants any kind of boots on the ground escalation that we have seen. There just isn't. It's not happening at that scale. It's not happening at that magnitude. And then what happens is it moves from undocumented migrants who are committing violent crimes to undocumented migrants, period. Get out all the illegals is what they start saying. Get out all the illegals. All the illegals need to go. They all need to go, which is, again, a stupid way to look at the world. It's a stupid way to look at the world. Our immigration system is inherently complex, intentionally complex, so that this happens, so that we can import cheap labor without having to figure out how to incorporate that labor into our society, without having to give the people who come to labor on our farms and in our service industry, giving them the benefits that they are due. So it is intentionally complex for that reason. So we're saying because people came in and got fucked by our system, we need to fuck them over twice and remove them from our country forcibly and inhumanely. Not necessary, not at all necessary. You will never convince me that we need to, quote, get rid of all the illegals. You will never convince me of that. Never, ever, ever. And then they move even further past that to immigrants who are here legally, who are now citizens. Legal immigrants, people with green cards, people with work visas, people who are in the process of getting asylum applications. All of these people now are targets too. And like that conversation was never even had in the public space. It just started happening. It just started happening where ICE and CBP started targeting these people who are on work visas, who have green cards, just started targeting them. blatantly targeting them. And then some dumbass little fucker, Nick Shirley, releases a video about widespread fraud in the Somali American communities in Minnesota and Ohio. And somehow that warrants the administration saying we are now going to denaturalize 100 to 200 US citizens per month. Denaturalization is not something that can just happen. It's just not, because citizens who are naturalized are the same as citizens who are born here. The only difference is they can't run for president. That's the only difference. You cannot say because you committed a crime, we are going to strip your citizenship and then deport you, because then you are not a citizen to begin with. Then you should never have been called a citizen. If you commit a crime as a citizen, whether you are naturalized or born here, you are subject to the same penalties that anybody who is here is subject to. That is the reality. So to then move from the worst of the worst undocumented migrants to undocumented migrants, period, to documented migrants to citizens who are naturalized, it is the literal definition of a slippery slope, and it doesn't stop at naturalized citizens. I guarantee you it doesn't stop at naturalized citizens. It'll go from naturalized citizens to citizens who look other, who don't have the heritage, who were here. They'll look at the number of generations. Are you only one generation? Are you only two generations? Do you not have the heritage to warrant your presence in this country? Then it'll move beyond that. And at some point, even the lickers of the boots today will find themselves outside, because people who select never stop selecting. If you remove constitutionally enshrined rights from the Constitution and instead you put it in the hands of the selectors love selecting and they will never stop. So the circle will get smaller and smaller, and even the bootlickers will find themselves outside the circle at some point, and then they'll realize, but it'll be too fucking late for them. Ugh. A lot of illegal immigrants in our country are here as a result of our foreign policy. Yes, abso-fucking-lutely. I mean, the Somali immigrants are here because of our foreign policy. Afghani immigrants are here because of our foreign policy. Most of the immigrants who are here, who have big communities that have immigrated recently, are because of our foreign policy. That is just a fact. My opinion is that anyone who wants to be here who isn't a known criminal should be allowed here. Oh yeah, I'm also for open borders, but that is never going to sell in the current nationalistic, like, we have doubled down a globalized nationalistic state, and we're never going to get to the point where we have people, like, at least right now in our lifetimes, I don't think we're going to get people to agree that open borders makes sense when it blatantly does, when it just clearly does, when every issue that we face is a global issue. The biggest issues facing us, climate change, AI, they are global issues, and borders don't make sense in that world. It's wild. It is wild. But here, I didn't watch this interview in full with bigHena, and I wanted to watch it, so let's check this out.
U.S. Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Greg Bovino. Thank you for being here. Sir, you are still in Minneapolis, and I want to get to...
Did you watch the whole thing, Wiggy? I haven't watched the whole thing.
Answered first and foremost is that Alex Preddy approached Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. I want to go back to one of the videos.
It's being weird.
I know you can see it there, and
Can we watch the actual video? There we go.
Here with me now is U.S. Border Patrol of this incident. Show him holding up a cell phone and recording it, not a gun. Did he at any point pull out his weapon?
Yeah, I don't always love Dana Bash, but I did.
Morning,
the clips I saw
for
today,
having
she
me.
did cook.
The weapon, and we do know that the suspect did bring a weapon, a loaded 9mm high-capacity handgun, to a riot. We do know that.
A riot.
As far as what
A
happened
riot.
in that intervening moment with the video that you just showed.
Thanks, Liggy.
That's going to come to light through the investigation. That's being investigated, and those facts and those questions will be answered soon enough.
Okay, but the Homeland Security
Okay,
Secretary
but-
is not waiting for that investigation to take place before saying that Alex Preddy was, quote, brandishing a weapon. Let's go to video 7 because, of course, you know this far better than I. The definition of brandishing is waving or flourishing something, especially a weapon, as a threat or an anger and excitement. That's just a still photo of what Alex Preddy appears to be holding. There is nothing that we have seen that showed him, as Secretary Noem said, brandishing a weapon. Have you, sir, seen something different to support what the Secretary said?
Dan, I think what we need to take a look at here is the situation in its totality. What happened leading up to this situation? The suspect decided to inject himself into a law enforcement action. What's not being said here is the fact that Border Patrol agents and law enforcement were conducting a targeted law enforcement effort against a violent,
Not illegal to document it.
alien
Not illegal to document it.
that was nearby. And
The number of people out here who believe it is illegal to record federal agents while they conduct federal operations astonishes and scares me. It is not illegal. Let me make this blatantly clear. It is not illegal to record federal agents as they conduct federal operations. What is illegal is impeding, and they tend to really broaden that definition of impeding to make it really hard for you to record them. But recording them, not illegal. Absolutely fucking not illegal.
that suspect injected himself
Injected.
into that law enforcement
Yeah, Steph.
situation with
Ugh.
a weapon. And
It's hard. It's a hard watch.
When that
This
situation
earnest
first came
motherfucker.
about,
He might be the worst of them all.
the shooting, that's going to be investigated, and we're going to get to the facts of that.
Well, you said yesterday that this
No expectation of privacy in public. Yep. This has been this has been adjudicated multiple times.
That he wanted to massacre law enforcement, because all the videos that we have, and I do want to, we just have a still shot up now.
Oh shit.
But I do, control room, want to play one of the other videos. Let's play video number 1 again. It doesn't look anything like he's trying to massacre law enforcement. In fact, he was filming.
Dana Bash.
Looked like he was trying to help another individual.
Thank you.
there
Just show the
down by
video.
law
Just show the video.
And then they
Just show
went
the
after
video.
him.
In fact, I believe that the fantastic training that our law enforcement partners have, the fact that they're highly trained, prevented any specific shootings of law enforcement. So good job for our law enforcement.
Oh, that's all that mattered. Oh, it prevented the shooting of law enforcement. Congrats. So far, you've killed 2 people. They're out here being like, oh, but they broke the windows of law enforcement. You've broken countless windows and you've killed 2 people. Sorry, you've killed 3 people. You killed Keith Porter too, just because the guy was off duty when he did it. He's still one of yours. You've killed 3 people. You have shot at least 5 people. No, I'm sorry. At least 5 people in 2026. At least 5 people in 2026 have been shot by CBP or ICE, and at least 3 people have been killed by CBP or ICE. Motherfuckers.
Before he was able to do that. And again, Dana, let's look at why he was there in the first place. Was he simply walking by and just happened to walk into a law enforcement situation and try to direct traffic and stand in the middle of the road?
It doesn't matter. Guess what? It doesn't matter why you're somewhere. It doesn't matter if you're there to record law enforcement or not. It doesn't matter if you were there to commit a different crime and decided not to commit that crime. Because guess what? You don't get shot in the middle of the road. You don't get executed in the middle of the road for that. That is what this country is about, right? Laws, constitutional republic, all that good shit.
Delay and obstruct law enforcement. Or was he there for a reason? Did he fall victim to
Doesn't
that
matter.
violent and heated
Yeah,
rhetoric by
like you
a
look up
verified
Keith Porter. It is upsetting. It's so upsetting. And he is the only black person, the only person of color that was killed by ICE or CBP this year. If you haven't heard about Keith Porter, I'm gonna full screen this for a second so I can tell this man's story. Keith Porter Jr. is a person who he was living in Los Angeles County. I think it was either in Los Angeles County or on the outskirts. And he, on New Year's Day, he was, there's like a tradition among some cultures to shoot off a gun on New Year's to celebrate, in celebration, right? So this is all purported. This is the only witness is an ICE officer. An off-duty ICE officer heard gunshots going off. The guy showed up and saw Keith Porter Jr. and he claims that this man decided to turn his weapon at the ICE officer, off-duty ICE officer. He was, again, this is all from the perspective of the ICE officer who said he was shooting the gun off in celebration. When the man approached him, he decided to point his gun at the off-duty ICE officer. Makes 0 sense for anyone to do that. Makes 0 sense. And the off-duty ICE officer had to kill him in response. I believe there were multiple shots that went off. It was not just a single defensive shot. There were multiple shots that went off. My understanding of it, if I recall correctly. And the man was killed there in the streets. This guy had no business leaving his apartment, leaving his no doubt wretched ass apartment to go seek out trouble when there was no trouble to be found, and instead created trouble in the hopes that he could kill a black man. That is my opinion. That is obviously not facts. I don't know. There's not been proven why he did it. But based on what I know about ICE and CBP and how much they love targeting brown and black people, that is what I'm surmising. And they killed Keith Porter Jr. and nobody has talked about it because he's just another black man dead in the streets.
Waltz. Look, Dana, they're trying to portray Border Patrol agents and ICE agents.
Absolutely, Liggy. All of these situations, they're trying to claim law and order, and they're trying to say like, well, you shouldn't be impeding federal officers. You shouldn't be shooting guns in the air. I agree. Shooting guns off in the air, dangerous. It is not punishable with death. There are very few crimes in our country and very few states that carry a sentence of death. Very few states, because our country generally does not believe in that, right? And impeding law enforcement and shooting guns off in the air with no intended target, not a death sentence. But in a police state that is policed by inept and untrained officers, it has become these offenses. Every offense have become death sentences.
Nazi, and many other words. Did this individual fall victim, as many others have, to that type of heated rhetoric?
I want to stay focused on this incident right now, because what you were saying is that he went there to try to stop this law enforcement operation. All of the video that we have seen shows him documenting it with his cell phone, which is a lawful thing to do. Absolutely. And the only time he seemed to interact with law enforcement is when they went after him, when he was trying to help an individual who law enforcement pushed down. So where do you have the evidence to show that he was trying to impede that law enforcement operation?
Sure, Dana, first he was there in the scene. He was in the scene actively impeding and assaulting law enforcement to the point.
But that's not illegal. He wasn't.
Thank you, Dana Bash. Thank you, Dana Bash.
Which is a legal thing to do in the United States of America.
Dana, let's don't freeze frame adjudicate this now.
Fuck you. That is another buzz phrase that Bovine is on now. Don't freeze frame adjudicate this now. Don't freeze frame adjudicate, okay? We're not going to freeze frame adjudicate. You know who's freeze framing adjudicating? It was the freeze frame adjudicating is when you showed the video of the very deceptive video of Jonathan Ross being hit by the car, by Renee Good's car, from that one grainy ass angle. That is freeze frame adjudicating, because there was only one frame in that one grainy ass video where it could even be conceived that happened. And when you look at all of the angles, it's clear that didn't happen. That's what freeze frame adjudication is. Freeze frame adjudicate this now.
Law enforcement to
what
the
evidence
point.
do you have of that?
And here's a good point, Dana, is the fact that
I love a man saying, here's a good point before he speaks. That's so fun. That's such a fun tee up. Such a fun way to look at yourself. Now, here's a good point I'm about to make, and I'm going to tell myself it's a good point, because otherwise I'm afraid to speak if I don't have the confidence to think it's a good point.
De-escalation techniques were utilized during this action. Those de-escalation techniques, whether it was physically trying to remove them from that law enforcement scene, that active law enforcement scene in which law enforcement were going after a violent illegal alien, or the use of pepper spray, which is another de-escalation technique. Those techniques did not.
Oh my God. This is the clip I saw. Was Bovine saying that pepper spray is a de-escalation technique. Pepper spray is not a de-escalation technique in any law enforcement handbook. That is not de-escalation. That is a use of force. Use of force, typically not de-escalation. Not de-escalation, motherfucking fucker. Oh, this man just lies. He just lies through his crooked ass teeth.
Officers always try to use the minimum amount of force necessary to either effect an arrest, which in this case was more than likely 18 U.S.C. 111.
Yeah, I think, Liggy, the judge had said no chemical weapons in Chicago, and that was the situation. Sarah Ellis in Chicago had basically made it so that Bovine had to show up to her court every day and justify any use of force. And that's, I think, what ultimately made them move on from Chicago. I mean, obviously, there's still ICE agents and CBP officers in Chicago, but the Operation Midway Blitz, the formal operation that they were enacting, the full court press, It ended very shortly after Judge Sarah Ellis, and she was super fucking effective in Chicago. And I want to know where these judges are in Minneapolis to do the same, because they were out within 3 weeks of her being like, you have to show up at my quarters every evening. And they moved on to Charlotte. So it went, by the way, the names of these operations are increasingly inhumane. It was, okay, Operation Midway Blitz. All right. Operation Charlotte's Web in Charlotte. Gross. And then Minneapolis, it's, what is it in Minneapolis? Operation, I don't remember what it is in Minneapolis. But in fucking Maine right now, the new one they started, it's Operation Catch of the Day. Operation Catch of the Day. Not human beings, but animals. Animals to be caught. Fuck you.
Where did he assault a federal officer in any of the video that you have seen? Because it looked to us from every angle, sir, that he was approached by them when he was helping another individual who was pushed down. What evidence do you have that he was assaulting any law enforcement?
Great question.
Dana, we don't need a suspect's help in an active law enforcement scene.
When you say
A suspect's help?
That's an
Help?
active law enforcement scene. He knew that was an active law enforcement scene, especially when the officers approached him, and it's very evident he did not need to
Oh,
be
damn.
where he was.
So when somebody,
I missed
on
that.
his own to stay there.
So when somebody is pushed down and a person's instinct is to help that person, when somebody's pushed down by law enforcement, you're saying that
They
you
shouldn't
just
help.
stand back and let law enforcement do what they're doing?
Don't help a person
is that
up.
Really human nature?
You know, Dana, every situation is different. What our officers are faced with here in Minneapolis are chaotic, very difficult and violent situations in which.
Oh yeah, this
suspect-
this was the court in Minneapolis that said that they can't retaliate against peaceful protesters, which is again just a constitutional right that I guess they were reaffirming. And then they stayed that determination, and we're like, well, we're not sure if you can retaliate against peaceful protesters. Let us revisit this First Amendment that we all speak of. Let us revisit that before we make a determination as to whether or not ICE and CBP officers can retaliate against peaceful protesters.
Is not the only one to bring a loaded weapon to a riot. The situations are chaotic and ever changing. Follow directions for law enforcement. Don't inject yourself.
Why does he keep saying inject?
Beforehand into a law enforcement situation.
With respect, it feels as though in some ways you're blaming the victim here.
The victims are the Border Patrol agents. I'm not blaming the Border Patrol
The
agents.
victims are the Border Patrol agents. Are you kidding me? My head will explode. My head's about to explode. My head's about to explode. He said, when you said that he really victimized CBP and ICE in the situation, I did not think you meant he literally said that we were the victims. That's fucking insane. That's the people who shot. Deep breaths.
There.
I want to go back to the gun, sir, because I think this is really, really critical. You can see an agent, and I just want to go to, let's see here, video 5. You can see a screenshot of an agent in a green jacket approach Preddy, and then he appeared to take a gun away. When the agent took the gun away, which seems as though it was Preddy's gun, that happened before Preddy
explicitly
was shot. Why was an unarmed man shot multiple times by law enforcement?
Good question, Dana Bash. Good question, Dana Bash.
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime
Oh my
scene,
God, stop saying that.
via a photo. That's why we have investigators.
Did you see that, by the way?
We have an no, he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication.
I'm gonna freeze frame him. Hold on.
Of a crime scene.
That little fucking smirk. That little fucking smirk. Oh my God, this motherfucker. He knows. He loves it. He loves what he's doing here. There was a smirk.
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed.
He says freeze frame adjudication, and then he smirks.
Frame adjudication of a crime scene.
Look at that smirk. Look at that smirk.
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime scene.
Look at that. Look at that giddy smirk. Look at that giddy ass smirk, this motherfucker. He loves it. He loves lying. He loves using buzz phrases to lie and get away with this shit. They knew he was unarmed? Yeah. Yeah, they knew he was unarmed. So is his claim here? Because like this guy loves getting into semantics. So is his claim that just because they removed one weapon doesn't mean that they knew he was unarmed? Because it sounds like that's what he's trying to say. It sounds like he's admitting that the CBP officer removed the weapon that they saw, but that they didn't know he was necessarily unarmed. By that logic, you don't know that anyone is unarmed. You would treat everybody as though they're armed. And guess what? You can. The way you treat somebody who you might think is armed is the same way you treat someone who's unarmed in a law enforcement situation, with caution and with restraint. The only situation in which you use deadly force is if there's imminent threat to life or serious bodily harm. That is the only situation. And if you don't know if this man is armed or not, then there is no imminent threat. The word imminent does a lot of work there. If you don't know if he's armed or not, meaning you cannot see a weapon, then there is not imminent threat. There's just inherently not imminent threat. My God. It's always possible there's another weapon. It's always possible. It's possible that he has a bomb on him. Any number of things are possible, but they do not pose imminent threat until the moment that you recognize that that is available to him, immediately available and about to be used. That is when imminent threat can be justifiably claimed. But short of availability of a weapon, there is no imminent threat. The man never reached. He never brandished. There was no imminent threat, motherfucker.
Via a photo. That's why we have investigators. That's why we have an investigation that is going to answer those questions. How many shots were fired? Who fired shots? Where was the guns? Where were the guns located? All those questions are going to be answered.
I think you can see the screen.
In the investigation. We're not going to adjudicate that here on TV.
Oh yeah, Greg bigHena more than anybody hates being cut off by women. He has made that clear. He is such a little baby ass bitch. He is such a little baby ass bitch. And all I see missing from the discourse is Pretty appeared to be pepper sprayed, so he was disoriented. Yeah, he was disoriented. He was pepper sprayed and then immediately tackled to the ground, right? On ice. Ice tackled him on ice, which is very slippery and disorienting. And then the man comes in, disarms him. This Pretty had his hands and knees on the ground at all times. The only time in which he does not have his hands and knees on the ground is after the first shot is fired, when all of the federal agents dispersed. Because I guarantee you they didn't see it coming. I guarantee you they did not think that that man was going to shoot. When that first shot is fired, the agents disperse, and Pretty, as a natural reaction to being shot, rears up. And that's when they're claiming he reached for his weapon. But by that point, the first shot had been fired already. I'm going to pull up the video. Could also use anything as a weapon, but that's when multiple men are piling over you. Yeah, let's say he even had a weapon in hand in that moment. I don't think even in that moment they could have reasonably claimed imminent threat, because he was in no position to fire off a shot. Even with weapon in hand, his hands and knees were on the ground. He was not in a position to fire off a shot. I was going to pull up the angle where you can see you know what? Hold on. I have one here. Let me see if I can. Okay, yeah, this is it. It's on Instagram. This is the best angle I've seen. Oh, God damn it, I have to log in. This is the best angle I've seen yet. Let me see. It's crazy. It's really wild that they have all the evidence. We see it all. The propaganda is no longer about framing what we observe, but it's about telling you what you observe. It's about saying, hey, what you saw, that's not what you saw. What you saw is not real. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust your ears. Trust us. Trust us instead. Let us be your eyes and ears. We know better. That's what they are saying. That's what they are saying. All right, here's the angle. Hold on. All right. This is the angle. It's slowed down and you can hear it and see it. Trigger warning. This is actually very upsetting. All right. This is right as the guy retrieves the gun from his waistband, right? He's retrieving the gun. You can see his hand on his waistband. He retrieves the gun and he's screaming, gun, gun, gun. You saw in that instant the gun was retrieved from the waistband and the other agent is already pulling out his weapon. Pretty is hands and knees on the ground. Hands and knees are on the ground. Hands and knees on the ground. The guy's weapon is out. Oh God, this is horrible. This is so horrible. That is the first shot. You hear the first shot go off. The guy's hands and knees are on the ground. Oh. And only at that point does he rear up. Only at that point does he get up. They're trying to claim that he was up before the first shot went off and he was reaching for his gun, but there's no reality in which that's the case. There's just no reality. Oh, I didn't even show the video. My bad. I didn't realize I hadn't switched screens. Here. Let's try it again. Hello? Oh, it's stuck. There we go. All right. So this is all right. The guy in the gray jacket is reaching over him. You can see his hand right here, reaching for the guy's weapon on his waist. He's reaching for the weapon. He pulls the weapon. Oh, the audio's off. He pulls the weapon out and he says, gun, gun, gun. And then the other agent pulls out his weapon. Note that Alex Preddy's hands and knees are on the ground at this point. Hands and knees firmly on the ground. Firmly on the ground. First shot goes off. First shot goes off. Hands and knees are still on the ground. You can see his backside. Nobody's reaching for anything here at this point. Nobody's reaching. Hands and knees on the ground. This is the point which he comes up and they're claiming that he tried to reach for his weapon at this point. The man they let go of him because all of these agents were unnerved by the shot, hearing the shot go off. That is why they let go of his hands. And that is why he was able to rear up. He was shot. And that's the only point at which he was able to get off his hands and knees. God, this is loud. So fucking loud. Negligent discharge. Either way, none of those negligent discharge or anything else doesn't warrant any of it. They should be held liable. They should be held liable.
Go.
Because not only maybe the first shot was a negligent discharge, whether it was the agent who was shooting at him or the guy who had pulled his weapon off his band, maybe. But why did you shoot 9 more shots after that? Why were 9 more shots discharged? Why? They would have to justify every single shot thereafter. And they would have to show that he proved an imminent threat to their life or to serious bodily harm for every subsequent shot that went off after the first. He is helping this woman up. And in the process of helping her up, they tackle him to the ground. Anyway, it is incredibly fucked. It is an incredibly fucked situation. When police, each use of deadly force generally has to be accounted for in a situation like this. Each use of deadly force would have to be accounted for. They would have to show that each use of deadly force was necessary and necessary in neutralizing imminent threat. And I don't think they could prove imminent threat on shot 1 and certainly not on shots 2 through 10. They could not. All right, that is it for me for this day. I'm still raging and seething, but I just wanted to get on and talk about this a little bit. And I think if you guys are here and you're watching, if you're looking for something to do, I think the most important thing you can do at this point in time is just provide mutual aid in your communities, figure out a way to volunteer, figure out systems to get involved in.